I'm sure you've all heard stories about Japan and how helpful their customer service is, and if you were to ask someone for directions on the street, then you would find yourself with a personal tour guide to your destination. I'd heard some of these stories before my trip, but I'm quite scared of people, so I really wasn't expecting to interact with anyone or have any unique encounters to talk about. But I guess I underestimated just how lost and confused I must have looked, because not even 2 hours after arriving, I was already approached by one of the locals offering to help me find which train I needed to be on. He pointed me in the right direction, and that's when I was able to use my first arigato gozaimasu. I hopped on the train and headed towards Tokyo Skytree. Unfortunately, we couldn't check into our hotel until 4 PM that day, and we arrived in Japan at 7 AM, so we had 9 hours to wait. And since we were staying close by to the Skytree anyways, we decided we would spend the day there. But before we could go and explore, we had to sort out our luggage, which brings us to incident number 2, the luggage lockers. In theory, the luggage lockers are simple. You give the machine your money, put your luggage inside, and go and enjoy your day until you're ready to pick it back up. But it didn't quite go like that for us. This machine only accepted cash or an IC card, which, if you don't know, those are the Suica and Pasmo travel cards you can get. But they stopped giving them out recently, and instead you had to get a tourist version of them, which at this point we didn't know how to do. We also didn't take any cash with us because we were told that there were ATMs pretty much everywhere in Japan, and it would be easy enough to pull some out once we got there, but we hadn't come across any yet. That being said, we had no way of paying for our locker. I would have been happy to just walk away and find another option, but that's when one of the workers came over to offer his help to us. He said the best option would be to go to the kombini, which was conveniently right behind us, and use the ATM in there. So in I went. The ATM was easy enough to use, and I was able to pull out 2 1,000 yen bills to pay for 2 lockers. I headed back outside, ready to give the machine my money, but the man just looked confused and pointed to the part of the machine that said it only accepted 1,000 yen bills. Which confused me because I was pretty sure that's what I had. But that's when I looked down at my hands and realized I was not holding 1,000 yen bills. I was actually holding 2 10,000 yen bills. For all you British people out there, that is like going to pull out £20 but coming out with 200. So not only would the machine not accept my money, I was also now just flexing on this man for no reason. So I went back inside to see if I could find a way to pull out 1,000 yen, but I couldn't see an option for that anywhere. The lowest option on the ATM I could see was 10,000 yen, so I didn't really know what to do. I just sort of stood in the kombini for a while, hoping the man would leave and I could sneak away from this awkward encounter. But he was not going to go anywhere until I got my suitcases into one of these lockers. So I headed back outside and just kind of shrugged to say, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I think that's when he decided he would just sort this out himself. He took the money from me and basically ripped open the machine and reached inside for a box that contained all the money the other people using the lockers had paid with. He swapped one of my 10,000 yen notes with 10 of the 1,000 yen notes inside the box. So with that money in hand and a few more arigato gozaimasus, I was able to store my luggage and go enjoy the rest of my day. For the next few days, the trip went pretty smoothly. That was until we needed to book our bullet train ticket from Tokyo to Osaka. There, we received the most outstanding customer service I have ever experienced. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about another encounter we had not long before. So we're in Tokyo Station, stood at the end of a long line to exchange our JR Pass voucher into a JR Pass ticket. This was back when they were actually worth the price. Anyway, we were approached by an older man who came over and had a nice small conversation with us. But during this, he warned us that we would be waiting there for a really long time. I just said that's okay, we don't have any plans today, so we don't mind waiting. But he kept reiterating this point and saying it's a really slow process and they will take a really long time to get around to seeing us. He also mentioned that there were other ticket offices in Tokyo Station that offer the exact same service, and that it might be worth for us to go look for them to see if the queues there would be shorter. But again, I just said that we really didn't mind waiting, and after a bit more conversation, he eventually started to leave. But it wasn't until after he was gone that I realized why he was leaving. As he left, he said, I go look. At the time, it didn't really register in my head what he meant by that, and it wasn't until a few moments after that I actually did realise. And I was really hoping I was wrong, and that this poor man wasn't scrambling around Tokyo Station looking at the different ticket offices just to see if they had shorter queues. But after about 25 minutes had passed, I spotted him walking back towards me. He came over and just said, "I'm sorry, I went to all ticket offices, but all have really big lines." And I just felt really bad at this point. This man didn't know me, he didn't work here, he was just a normal person going about his day, but he decided he would take time out of it just for the hope that a stranger wouldn't have to wait as long in a line. I gave him so many arigato gozaimases, and off he went. Eventually, we did make it to the desk, and with our new JR pass in hand, we could finally go and book our bullet train tickets. We had a go at using these machines ourselves, but it was all quite confusing, so I thought it would just be better to ask for help. However, up until now, everyone who helped us had approached us first, so I was a little anxious to ask. But luckily for me, there was one other Japanese word I knew: sumimasen. If you are going to Japan, please learn this word. It basically just means excuse me, which can be used in so many different situations. But what would come from this word today, nothing could have prepared me for. I sumimasen to the lady, and she came over and started to help us straight away. She filled in our passport details, picked the right destination and the time we would leave, and then it came to the last part, the seat selection. She had chosen 2 seats that were next to each other and asked me if they were okay, and I should have just said yes, but the seat she had chosen would have had us sat next to a stranger. If you didn't know, the bullet train is laid out like this. It has 16 cars, and inside each one of them, there are 3 seats on one side and 2 on the other. The problem is, the side with just 2 seats on is extremely popular because it's the side you can see Mount Fuji on as you head towards Osaka. So that side usually gets fully booked unless you are booking a week or 2 in advance, but we were doing this just a couple of days ahead, so the odds of getting 2 seats together on that side were really slim. We didn't even want the 2 seats on that side to see Mount Fuji. We just didn't want to have an awkward journey sat next to a stranger because we were both anxious and socially awkward people. So I reluctantly asked if we could look to see if there were 2 seats together on the other side, and I asked this with the intent that we would be the ones looking and she would go about her day. But with a smile, she just said, "Okay," and started looking through all the seats for us. This ended up taking a really long time because obviously most of the seats on that side were sold out, and even then the odds of finding 2 next to each other were even lower. But this didn't deter her. She kept looking and looking through each car, even checking different trains at different times, and she was searching through these really quickly. She had mastered these machines and was doing her job so efficiently, but despite this, there just wasn't any luck. And at this point, I just felt really bad for causing her all this trouble when all I could do was watch as she scanned through all these trains. And I was about to speak up and say, "It's okay, we'll just take the seats next to the stranger." But just as I was about to speak, I noticed her glance over to the other machine next to us. I couldn't tell you what was going through her mind at this point, but I knew she would not stop until we had those seats we wanted. She positioned herself between the 2 monitors and started using both of them at the same time. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It genuinely felt like a scene from an anime. With lightning speed arms and her third eye opened, she eventually found some loophole by looking at individual tickets on both machines instead of 2 tickets on one. She managed to find 2 single tickets, but the seats were next to each other and on the side we wanted. She stopped, took a breath, turned to us and asked, "Is that okay?" with a smile on her face. there wasn't enough arigato gozaimasus I could give her. We never would have figured that out on our own, but thanks to her incredible hard work, we were able to have a comfortable journey all the way to Osaka, with the added bonus of being able to see Mount Fuji on the way. Oh, never mind.